Sad but happy news. This is the last of the regular episodes. I'm calling it the last of the regular episodes, everyone, because obviously, if anything changes in the next, I don't know how many weeks, months, if we go into a second wave, if we have another lockdown, Max and I will come back with more guests and more chat about what that means. But for now, with the amazing news that hospitality can start reopening from Saturday, we think it's the right time to bring these episodes to an end, not least because all of our guests are going to be pretty damn busy running their businesses and catching up with everything. Before I introduce you to our guests and the topic today, though, I want to say a big, massive thank you. I want to thank every single person who's taken part in every single episode that we've had so far. We haven't had a single person say no. In fact, we've had people come to us and ask to be on. And that really is a testament to the reason Max and I started this in the first place, which is to help you navigate through what's been the most remarkable 15 odd weeks of anybody's business life and personal lives, obviously. And I also want to thank Max because actually if Max hadn't nagged me, I say that in the kindest way, and got on the phone and said, actually, Anya, you need to do this, I wouldn't be doing this, and I wouldn't have had so much fun over the last few weeks, chatting to old friends, making new friends, learning lots and sharing. And I want to thank you, the viewers, as well, because you've come back with great feedback, and it's really good to hear that everybody has benefited. Oh, and one more reason to thank Max. If Max hadn't been here every week, literally, there'd be no recording. Half the people would be on mute still because I don't know what to tell them what to do. And the editing would be appalling and I'd be swearing everywhere because he literally cuts out every swear word I ever say. So another thank you to Max for that. Anyway, on to this week's episode. And this is the one where we talk about reopening. And we have some favourite, all of our guests have been favourite, but we have the lovely Henry Ayers of Gentlemen Baristas, who was in our very first episode. Welcome back, Henry. Not Caroline, he is Henry today. Caroline on the weekends. Henry
only weekends, yeah.
And the amazing Edwin Harrison from Artisan and Curious Roo, who was also a previous guest, and of course, my co-partner, my co-host, the very lovely Max Dubiel from Redemption Roasters. And all of you are going to be talking to us about what the hell you've been doing in the last couple of weeks since the announcement and how you're preparing. Before we go on to preparation for full reopening, though, you've all had one or two stores open, haven't you, on takeaway only. So I thought it would be a really good start to find out from you how that's been going. So Max, why don't you kick us off with how your stores have been going on the takeaway front, how many you've got open so far, etc.
Sure, absolutely. We opened our first store about 2 months ago now, which is Lamb's Conduit Street, just because there's Great Ormond Street Hospital just around the corner. It's always been a busy area, and we really felt like we wanted to serve the community. We struggled at first because it was still, when you guys may remember, everything just felt a little Armageddon. The streets were empty, people were really shy to do anything. And we were doing sort of, I'd say 15 to 20% of our regular trade to start with. And that is literally day by day has gone up little by little. Now we're at about 45-50% of our regular trade, so it's okay for a takeaway only operation. We're not selling much food, a little bit of like sandwiches and that kind of stuff. Our other store in King's Cross opened, I'd say about a month ago, 4 weeks ago, and that immediately jumped to about 40 to 50% of our regular trade. That only took literally 1 week, and now we're up to that, and that's where we have been roughly. We've been seeing a little bit of an upward trajectory, but it feels like that for a takeaway only location is sort of the ceiling that we've been seeing. And our other 3 stores, all being in the city, we've kept shut. We don't really know when we're going to reopen them quite yet.
Yeah, of course. Henry, how about you? Because you've only just recently, a couple of weeks ago, opened one of your stores. How many have you got now?
So we've got pretty much 4 open. 2 of those were this week on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Figures aren't looking particularly great for those 2. the reason being one's in Fitzrovia and one is in Hammersmith, and that's being, we're heavily dependent on the offices upstairs and footfall. So Park Street's been going for a month now. I'd say that's at about 30% of revenue of what it was before lockdown, which is, it's okay. I mean, on a good day, it's 50% around that. On a bad day, it's about a third. But I think the stats in our sort of commuters through London Bridge is only at 10%. And then you bung into this, it's what I think Pret are operating an average of 85%. I mean, so for us, it's reduce the offer, tweak it somewhat. And for us, it's very much same as Max. It's been very much about enthuse your customers. You spend time with the customers now. You don't have that luxury of sort of conversation. There's so much and dwell time. So you've got a queue out the door, which is because that's the nature of the beast. That's what it's like now. You have to queue to get in, and then you've got that limited time with them. So for Park Street, which is already a tiny shop, that's halved in size. And yeah, we just had to tweak our offer considerably, review the sandwiches and takeaway side of things. And I'm thinking for some of the others, we're just going to sit tight and not open those. We're running everything on the skeleton crew anyway.
Right.
Coffee house is being done up, and we're hoping to open that maybe next week. But yeah, it's going to just come down to footfall and who's coming back. Yeah.
How about you, Edwin? How many of yours?
So we took the approach of sort of ripping the band-aid off and open them all at the same time about 5 weeks ago now.
And you've got 4 in total, is it 4? Or?
We've got 4. Well, we've got 4 Artisans and 1 Curious Roux. And we opened them all at the same time. We're slightly different in that we're sort of in the suburbs, Putney, Eastham, Chiswick. So actually, the people working from home are all sort of creating a rush at 10 o'clock, where the rush used to be at sort of 7:30. So fairly similar in terms of, we're at 50%, but in some of the real Eastham one, which is full of residential, that's up to about 60, 70%, which is great. And fairly similar to the others, we have tweaked our model. We've scaled it all the way down, doing something, trying to keep it as simple as possible. But something Henry said was interesting, is it's almost trying to get the team used to having a queue. I remember the first queue that they had, there was a lot of, oh my God, we can't cope, what's going on? It's out the door, it's around the corner, what do we, we need to unfurlough 15 more people, it was all panic. But actually, it's kind of saying, well, step by step, this is the new normal, we're going to be okay. Customers are more accommodating with the queue and so on and so forth. So it's sort of learning those little things at the same time and sort of going slowly with the team, but at the same time trying to encourage them how this new normal works, I suppose.
And I guess, we've all been, well, I haven't, but because I haven't been outside much, but most people have been trained by the supermarkets on how to queue, right? So it's kind of, it's what they're expecting. So, you've had that preparation. So what about full reopening? Saturday is the official day. Obviously, Henry, you've just said that you're going to kind of still keep what you've got open. How is that looking for you in terms of, I know Park Street is small, so you're already going in there as much as you can. There's no more seating availability. How many of are you thinking of phasing any more stores in the short term, or is it realistically going to be wait till you see footfall? What's that going to be like for you? Because you've got 10 stores, right?
Yeah, so originally I'd said confidently we were going to phase. Now it's literally going to be site by site. If the ones we've opened up this week, if the figures aren't looking as good next week, then we will have to close. We're running it on skeleton crew as it is. So the one by London Bridge at Vinegar Yard, that's ticking along. But the bigger ones, we're just going to wait until we know what's going on upstairs and the people coming back, the offices, etc. Then there's no reason to. But on the other side of the business, and certainly for everyone here actually, it's the wholesale side that's interesting. So that I'd say, talking to majority of my portfolio for the last couple of weeks, how many of them are saying no, we're not going to open, we're going to wait, see what happens, and then open later this month, if not next month. But yet there are others out there who are frantically trying to get ready for this Saturday and be ready for this now. Whether that's going to be sort of carnage in terms of everybody bombarding and just a stampede to get in places and getting excited about alcohol. I don't know. What does that mean for us in terms of coffee shops? People being able to sort of, don't know. It's an odd one. But I was just really, really interested to see who is actually remaining calm and saying, let's just test the water. Let's just see what happens. Let's see what the lay of the land is after this weekend. And I think in the back of our minds, I think everybody here, I don't know whether you agree or not, but there could well be another spike after the 4th, because you've had all these people self-isolating and then they're all suddenly coming together in small populations, whether it be on the fringes of London or wherever. But it's that fear of, if we do have another spike, what's that going to mean to our industry? So I think it's quite wise to actually just sort of sit tight and see what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, we had a supplier episode last week, and in fact, Alice from Alan Reader said exactly that. She just said that all of their clients are phasing. That they don't hardly have anybody who's opening have many numbers of their sites. If they're a multi-site operator, there's a lot of phasing going on. Yeah. So, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you guys about that. And actually, it's interesting you mentioned the second spike possibility and also what it's like as a wholesaler. So let's go on to that. Before we do, Max, and I mean, obviously, sorry, Edwin, you've got all 4 already open on takeaway. So are you, and Curious Russo 5, are you going to be fully opening them all or sticking with takeaway? How's your approach going to be?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion about this. So what we're going to do is we've actually changed our model, and we've trying to work on a sort of the next 6 months to 12 months that would sort of support us through no matter what would happen. So we've changed from a model where, for example, we used to run coffees to tables, we used to run food to tables. That no longer exists. We've mucked around with our bar and so on and so forth. So it's all around the counter. So basically a customer comes up, picks their own flapjack up, orders the coffee, takes the coffee and leaves at the moment. What we will now do is offer them sort of picnic style tables in and around the coffee shop and outside, so they can then go and sit down and use our tables if they wish to, but there'll be bins dotted all around, and when they leave, hopefully, if they're kind, they'll put their stuff in the bin and off they go. And that means the team's fairly protected because they're staying in that little zone where we've got screens up and so on and so forth. But it also means that hopefully for those people who've been absolutely dying to get out for a decent cup of coffee and get away from the family and whatever it might be, they can at least come and sit down, perch outside, and we have that option available to them. So we do sort of tap into that side of the market. So that's our sort of approach. We're literally going around each shop every evening today, sort of laying it out this week, laying it all out and getting it all ready. And to be honest, who knows? We'll see. But I don't think Artisan, for example, won't now move away from that model for another year, I would have thought. And I think that gives the team quite a lot of reassurance. I think this chopping and changing is just getting frustrating for the team. It's getting frustrating for the customers. And I think we said, well, no, let's come to a model that we can see working for the next year. And that's what we've now agreed on. And now that's what we're sort of rolling out.
And that's super, super sensible, actually, because as you say, if you keep chopping and changing, you're not keeping, firstly, you've not got, similar like-for-likes to compare your business model to, so you don't know if you're getting better or worse or why or how. I mean, one of the things you need is consistency in order to actually, track how your business is performing in these circumstances or in any circumstances. So Max, I know clearly the 3 in the city, keeping as they are. The 2 that you've got open, are you going to sort of both of them at the same time, fully open, and what's your approach with those 2?
No, we're doing it exactly like Edwin and Henry.
Yeah.
We want to have a bit of a wait and see approach rather than scrambling and trying to get ready and not doing it well. We see so many operators at the moment sort of saying, oh God, well, Perspex hasn't arrived, what shall we do? And we've already got all the supplies in. And I think we really want to take it slowly and then also find the right mix. I think you see everything now, and with hospitality businesses getting ready, from some of them that suddenly look like a bank where everything is behind glass and Perspex and there's so much distancing. And others just being like, nah, it's fine. And I think somewhere on that huge spectrum, you need to find the right middle way, because it represents our customers, right? We have some customers who are vulnerable and who take this very seriously. They don't leave the house without a mask and gloves, and we have others who sort of say, well, this whole Corona thing, I hope it's going to be over, and I just want to go back to normal. Yeah. And anything in between. So we want to make sure that we grab as much of the market back. So long story short, we're not fully reopening on the 4th. I think we want to look at what other players are doing. We'll be walking around a lot and grabbing a lot of flat whites from all the lovely, especially coffee shops in London, and just test the market a bit and see how others are reopening, what looks logical, what makes sense. And then sort of within maybe a couple of weeks, 1, 2, 3 weeks, slowly start opening tables again.
Actually, talking about that, Max, Edwin, you were saying to me the other week that you want to sort of reach out to other operators to kind of have conflabs and discussions around, you know, how everybody's doing and everybody's thinking. Is that something that, I mean, I don't know if you've started yet or not, or what your thinking was behind that? Did you want to sort of share a little bit about that today? Because clearly we'll have specialty coffee shops watching this, so obviously they can reach out to you if they want to get involved.
Yeah, well, they're welcome to, absolutely. I think we just think that right now is the time for ideas and discussion, basically. And the best ideas that we have are when we're talking to others, like-minded people in the same situation, in the same boat. And the amount of times I've gone, God, that's a good idea, you know, or you start working something out and it just seems to fall into place. I think it works. And I think there are a few out there who sort of, people sometimes are quite isolated within their own little bubble of a business. And I think the good ones are the ones that shout, you know, are the ones that sort of do make an effort to go and meet and talk and be part of the industry. But there are also a lot of individual operators literally scratching their heads right now, running lovely little places going, you know, oh, I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that. And I think they're the ones we were sort of thinking, well, why don't we just go and have a chat? You know, if they're in the local area, we'll reach out to them and just see how they're going. And that's been nice. It's been lovely to sort of do and explore different options, because let's be honest, the hospitality industry does need all the help it can get.
Yeah.
And I think right now it is the time to sort of come. And I've actually been quite impressed with how the hospitality has been represented at government level in terms of sort of, there has been quite a lot of pushing, especially around that 2 meters to 1 meter. Whether that's good or bad is a different discussion, but it at least there has been that voice, you know, shouting for the hospitality sector. But I think what's nice is the little people, the little independents, sort of having little chats, little Zoom meetings, talking about the complexities of furlough, whether you can or can't, what you can do, you know, these sorts of things, to what customers may or may not like. And yeah, of course, Magda and I have been around the block a bit. We've done it a few times. So anything we can do to help, we're happy to sort of reach out to those people.
Brilliant. Well, your website address is going to be in the description, so presumably people can contact you through there if they want to reach out and chat to you. And obviously listening to this and previous episodes will also help people think and look at what's going on. Actually, thinking about furlough, you just mentioned furlough. Obviously that's changing, isn't it, going forward? And it's becoming still helpful, but more impetus onto the employer to pay more share of the furlough. How's that going to affect you all if you're phasing your, obviously Edwin, you've got your 5 open, but for Henry and Max, how's that going to affect you in terms of furloughing going forward? And have you got any kind of thoughts about how you're going to mitigate that?
So basically it incentivizes employers to very quickly start up again, right? Because it gets gradually more expensive holding staff on furlough. And we've already been pretty hard hit, and it'll be a long run. So it's we just don't have the cash reserves to keep people on furlough and not having them work. So what we're doing in particular, because we know some shops are not going to reopen anytime soon, I mean the city shops, is we are looking into pop-ups. It's not something we would normally do, but it's the best way to get our guys back from furlough and justify that expense with some additional takings. And I'm sure none of you will be surprised that landlords are very open to deals at the moment, because no one is really looking for long-term leases. So We've got one pop-up, which we're excited to be opening in 2 to 3 weeks time, and that's on the King's Road. It's a unit we would not normally be able to afford, but we managed to get a great deal, and hopefully we'll have it not just for a month or two, but maybe for up to a year.
And that's quite exciting for the team because they've got a new, fresh area, new store. Also, I guess in terms of the fit out, it means you're starting from scratch, so you can do all the social distancing stuff without having to move everything around, right? So yeah.
They look a bit rough and ready, but it's a pop-up. I mean, yeah.
That's the nature of a pop-up as well. I think people expect that, don't they? So
yes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Henry? What are your thoughts around moving forward and the furloughing and how you're going to manage that?
Realistically, we're going to have to make redundancies. Long and short of it, we sort of worked out, looking at the whole of our team, which is 90 odd people, that we start with senior management and then head baristas and down. We've also earmarked, the people that really, really keen to come back to work. We've got a percentage of people that have gone back to their country of origin. So we lost a few to Italy and Spain, etc. who we didn't even know had gone. They just sort of upped and went. So we've sort of, it's kind of like it sounds awful, but not necessarily a first come, first served basis, but it's the ones that are keen to come back to work. So we've earmarked the basic opening teams for these sites. It's just the harsh reality is we can't bring everyone back, and that really hurts. There's a handful of guys that I've managed to find work elsewhere. So we somehow managed to get new business. So I've probably got about 10 new customers during this whole lockdown.
Right. Wow.
One of which is a hotel. So putting one guy in there for a few weeks to train everyone up. So the coffee will be amazing. And we never had that luxury before. It's usually a day or two at site training.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I'm just trying to keep them motivated and see if I can find work. So, Alpro did that thing when the Instagram ad thing for sort of 3 or 4 things. So I managed to get a few people signed up for that. And we're sort of getting emails and texts a lot at the moment from our guys saying, when can we come back? And the reality is we can't afford to bring them back. I wish we could. The same as everyone else here. It's until the money starts coming in the tills and still the footfall increases and the city workers, whatever, come back, then there's no point. I got sent a text this morning from bank, and obviously it's a ghost town, but I've got a client there who've just taken on, and she's genuinely scared. She's built up a business over the last, say, 15 years. She's been working on a refurb. She's looking to now push back the opening till September, when she's reliably informed that the station will be sort of a bit more active then. And she's genuinely terrified about the future.
But I think being sensible in the way that you are is gonna, it has to be you're a much bigger company in the sense that you've got 10 sites. A lot of those sites are in areas where, as you say, September seems to be the buzz month for businesses going back to offices, employees, getting back on public transport, etc. So it makes sense, but it is really, really tough. And I think one of the percentages in the benchmarking report that I did was that there's 20% of staff not necessarily coming back for whatever reason for a lot of businesses. And I mean, that's a rough number. You've probably all read it and know the number better than I do. But and it's a horrible reality, and that's quite tough to deal with. What about doing anything differently though? I mean, obviously we've already heard a couple of, Edwin, you've already said you're completely changing your the makeup of your business effectively in terms of how you serve, how you deliver to your consumers, and how you've got things set up. Is there anything else that any of you are doing or thinking of doing or have seen happening out there that is different to how a traditional coffee shop, if there ever is such a thing, used to run, and can take that into sort of the future?
I think one thing that we've been looking at a lot over the last 8 weeks really is the use of outside space and who we can partner with around the shops to basically put a table outside wherever we possibly can. And it's been really nice sort of working with, I am actually going to say this, with the councils to come up with unique ideas, and they've been very, very receptive to to listening to our ideas and what we can do. And also working with other businesses around. We have in Putney Shop, we've got a Putney Arts Theatre, and which is across the road, and they've allowed us to put 9 park benches in their yard area.
Wow.
Which is about a 10-second walk from our shop. Which actually, if you look at covers and look at these sorts of things, that's very significant. But in return, we're obviously donating a small amount to their cause to try and keep the theatre going. So it just works really beautifully. Now that's an idea that wouldn't have happened this time last year. We probably wouldn't have thought about it, and even if we did, I'm sure there would have been like objections along the way. But this is sort of it's just worked, and it's going to go nicely. And I think looking at the opportunities around that, normally you would just see a wall, but actually now thinking, what if we did have a chat with that person who's got the empty shop across the road? What if they had park benches in that empty shop and we could just open the doors and we were responsible for that? What if we then just got some, you don't even need that much money to actually start having these ideas and start getting a bit creative. And looking around in the community and sort of saying, well, how can we make this work? I think is going to be quite a significant way for businesses to
That's a really, really good buzzword, actually. I was really frustrated at first because our existing outside seating license for one of our shops was actually revoked, and sort of thinking it doesn't make any sense at all. And other big cities are now turning the streets into seating zones to allow hospitality businesses to reopen with physical distance. And here's the City of London actually revoking existing outside seating licenses. But then we didn't engage much at the time because we're not going to open the city sites anytime soon anyways. But it's quite inspiring how you guys are doing it. And I think we should work closely with the council to see whether there are any other solutions, how they can help us and how we can work together.
It's really interesting. I think it's, as Edwin says, it a year ago, absolutely not. Councils are sort of very restrictive in their thinking. I mean, even for us in Park Street, we opened up there, had 2 benches, and within a month we were told to remove them. Now we're sort of looking to, there's talk of pedestrianising a lot of streets, etc., which is great. I mean, I'd love to see less traffic in London when obviously we need our deliveries, but that's within a certain lot of time. It works beautifully in Borough Market. The thought that Borough Market completely, all the roads will be pedestrianised is just music to my ears, quite frankly. Hopefully the council will work a bit more with us in terms of seating, etc. But it's great to be able to see these spaces that, as Edwin said, a year ago were not even looked at, weren't used or utilised. Now, hopefully this is going forward, we become, weather permitting, a bit more of an alfresco society. But I think that's exciting times, and it does very much open the doors in terms of what you've got around you and working with your neighbours and saying, look, can we have tables and chairs like that? I think that's wonderful, and that's exactly how this should be. And if anything's come from this, then it's people working together, better communication, and just being kind and a bit more generous.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of this whole journey, in fact, I think it was probably with you, Henry, and a couple of subsequent conversations where a lot that was coming out of this in terms of hope and also observation was the sense of community that was being even more strengthened. I mean, we're a fairly strong community as an industry anyway, although we only ever meet up once a year at an event, or maybe 2 events. And then the rest of the time, as Edwin says, we retreat into our little bubbles. I say we, I don't, I talk to everybody, but you lot. And the fact that something that has so potentially detrimental to our industry and to hospitality as a whole has actually helped to bring us together a little bit is a good thing to come out of this, and hopefully inspires ideas within each other to do something different. And hopefully that means, for you potentially, Henry, and for Max with the city stores, whether there's something new and exciting that can come from that as and when people do start coming back, and whether there is more pedestrianisation, whether you can get more seating and more conversations with, local people and areas and other shops, that can only be a good thing. You said at the beginning, Henry, not at the beginning, but just sort of, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes ago about wholesale going back up. So,
Yeah.
you know, all three of you are wholesale businesses. So that's, you know, that's a lot of people ask me, how on earth do independent coffee shop companies, you know, manage a wholesale business? But I bet right now, a lot of independent coffee shop businesses are going, I wish I had a wholesale business, because presumably it's one of the things that's going to be, you know, helping, whether some of the smaller storms and bigger storms that are coming. So how are things going with wholesale for all of you? Henry, you start.
So this is the interesting one, because now we're looking at the revenue of our shops and looking at wholesale, and wholesale sort of creeping up with more and more shops opening. Obviously, before lockdown, we weren't an online business. We literally had a couple of orders a week, and that's been a massive game changer for us. So we're sort of really pushing that a bit more now in terms of what the offer is, etc. For wholesale side of things, the reality is there's a lot of our customers sitting on old stock, and that sort of that hurts a bit, because it's whilst many of these stores are going to be opening up, they're sitting on old stock. They don't want to throw that away, because that's a loss of earnings. But for us, we'd rather they did. But then with the amount of people who've approached us and said, well, are you happy to replace that? It's like, if we did that, then we would be massively in the red. So we're trying to work with our customers and see what we can do. It's really encouraging that more people are opening. Now, in terms of their orders, they're down 50%. Absolutely. Certainly that at this stage. There are a few exceptions to that. Their volumes are what they were before, which is great. But for the majority, it's definitely down to 50% of what it was. It's encouraging that more and more people are opening. Yes, great. And with that, we've got the sort of, we're going out, ensuring that the machines are flushed, set up accordingly, deep cleans, etc., and sort of saying, look, we'll do that at our cost. We want the coffee to be the best it can be. And because we send our coffee out in tubs rather than bags, if those tubs haven't been stored appropriately, then it's, you know, oxidation, and it's detrimental to the freshness of the bean. So had those been kilo bags, then non-return valve. So it's just ensuring freshness, really. So we're spending a lot of time now trying to bring some of our guys back to audit and just go and help and encourage the customer and say, look, let us deal with this. You concentrate on front of house and your PPE, etc., and the staff training. Let us tweak the machine and get you up and running. But yeah, I mean, it's suddenly how our business is working, and suddenly wholesale is beginning to creep up again, and that's going to be a huge part of our revenue if the shops continue to sort of take the takings that they are doing.
In terms of total volumes roasted, Henry, where are you at? 30%, 50%?
Yeah, no, I mean we're lucky. I would say we're probably 50% or down 40 to 50% a week, which is good, but it's taken us a while to creep up. And this week's been great. It's been the first week we've seen the volume increase. And we're sort of roasting every day, which is great, but it's not the figures that we were used to. But with more customers opening up again, that should increase. But I think July is going to be a bit of an odd one. But then we're into August, and then historically that's a quieter month for all of us. Then what does that mean this time? Are people going to go away, or are they going to stay put? I think for a lot of people with the ease of lockdown, it's the chance to get away. But I'm curious as to, one, will Italy close down? I don't know. For the first time in their history, will they actually decide to stay open? That's going to be an interesting one for us as an industry, whether August is going to be up on last year historically. I think potentially it could be. I think the freedom, etc. But for us, I think July is going to be a bit of an odd one, purely because people are sitting on old stock and then trading and trying to get rid of all that old stock and then ordering more. So I don't know. What are you anticipating?
I mean, with us at the moment, we're doing sort of 35% of our regular volume, which feels silly because we've just opened a new roastery with 5 times the capacity. We can literally do our week's roasting in a day now. But overall, we see an upward trend, and it's exciting to see our clients that have pivoted really well. I mean, there are some neighborhood cafes that are suddenly killing it, and one of our wholesale account managers is not coming back, because on furlough he then started working in his sister's cafe, and they're suddenly doing so well that he's not going to come back, which is a real shame. But there are some neighborhood cafes that have really done well out of this, and some of them are our clients, and that's great. I think some of our big clients are just going to take a long time until they come back properly. Some of our big office clients, corporate clients, it'll just take some time.
I think it's interesting what Edwin was saying as well. So the sort of the boroughs, if you like, the sort of the villages, etc., on the outskirts of the centre of London, they're benefiting from people working from home. I've certainly seen this from some of our clients outside of London, and ones in Kent. So the commuters that they're expecting the busiest days to be weekends. Generally, it's been steady throughout the week. Now, with the trend going towards more people working from home, it's going to be interesting to see how that will change. Will our inner city coffee shops see? Well, obviously we'll see a decrease, but will our accounts and shops beyond the centre, will they now increase in terms of profitability and customer footfall? This is going to be, it's interesting times, but no, it's just, we don't know. I mean, it's such, hearsay, people speculating all the time. Very interesting times too. And for me, the most exciting thing is that people are really getting infused, really getting behind independence, us basically, which is really exciting. So I live in St Albans, and Encora is here. Encora have got two in London and one here, and they've been open all the way through lockdown, and they've got a very, very loyal following, and there's a queue outside the door every day. A high street coffee company open their doors next door, and anyone who lives in St Albans will know who I'm talking about. But there was no queue, no demand to get in there. And with the other high street shops now opening, you're seeing more of these cups around the town itself. But it's just really interesting that people are getting behind the independents, whether that's online or just visiting them. There's another shop up here that's decided to close their doors, but they're predominantly a bakery, and they're opening between 4 and 7 most nights. So, which I thought was quite strange, because they had a very loyal following for their coffee offering, but they make their money from puddings and cakes and whatnot. So that's been interesting. But it really encouraged and enthused by the fact that the nation as a whole, majority, 70, 75, 80%, are really getting behind the independents and saying that's where they want to spend their money. That's really encouraging, I think, anyway.
Well, there are a few things that are quite interesting. One, we seem to be picking up new accounts, which I just didn't see happening right now. And I think what's happening is a lot of owners are questioning everything that they do in their business. And they're really looking at every single aspect. And some are saying, well, do you know what? I did quite average coffee. I want to move into specialty. I think that's going to be the way I'm going to get out of this. That's how I'm going to get a loyal following. Let's give Kurosuru a call, or whoever it might be. And that's taken me a little bit by surprise, because I didn't really sort of think that was going to be happening right now. But I do get it, because actually in our business, we're even questioning everything. We're changing milk supply, for example, after a 8-year relationship. And, that's something I didn't think we'd be doing. But I think it does give you these 3 months of giving you this opportunity to sort of people take a step back and go, maybe I do need to freshen things up a bit. Maybe I do need a bit of a change. Maybe I do need to demonstrate to my team that I'm serious about coffee. I'm serious about this. So I think that's interesting. And on the back of that, it's made Magda and I realize that maybe the way out of this is the roastery, in terms of the unfurloughing of our team. Because as soon as you bring on a new customer, as Henry said, then you're going to go and train them, then you're going to go and look after their machines, then we've got the Artisan Coffee School that's going to look after their ongoing training and their team. So suddenly you're thinking, well, actually, we need that person back to come and do that part, then we can bring that person part to, and suddenly you think, well, actually, phew, we might be okay. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost thinking, when you're thinking of how do we get out of this, or how do we bring back the key people that we really desperately want to bring back, the answer essentially is, well, get out there yourselves and start selling. And I know it sounds obvious, but maybe now is an opportunity to do so, because right now every owner is thinking, should I stick with my roaster? Should I make a change? So right now, I mean, we're talking this week, next week, these things are happening. And I think the ones that are fairly on it and quick, you know, there is an opportunity there. So I think that's quite interesting at the moment.
And I think also one of the big sectors of hospitality that is obviously champing at the bit to open and is going to be opening, but it's going to find it needs more than just, you know, beer on tap and chicken in a basket, is the pub sector. And you know, I think that those good pubs are going to be looking at their coffee as well, because they're going to need to stay open for longer and have a reason in order to, you know, keep that turnover going, and being able to offer coffee in their local village, etc. It's going to be a key way for them to keep business going. So that's a really strong sector to be able to start, you know, thinking about for coffee shops and for wholesalers and roasters particularly. And actually, to your point, Henry, earlier, you said something about, you know, August. You know, actually, I think the staycation is going to be massive this year in the UK. And I think that means there's a lot of hospitals, a lot of hotels and B&Bs, and, you know, already I'm hearing a lot of my friends trying to book for their holidays in the UK, finding everywhere they want to go is already booked up.
Yep.
You know, which is worrying, because for my 50th we wanted to go away, so we need to make sure that we can book up. Luckily we want to go to Wales and that's not open yet, so as soon as it opens we're booking. But so that's another opportunity, isn't it, in terms of if you're looking around what's happening elsewhere outside of coffee but still, you know, needs a strong coffee offer. There are areas of hospitality that are changing as much as we are, that are going to need that, you know, that extra helping hand with things like changing up a gear, getting better coffee in, and, you know, all of that in order to keep their trade going across longer hours, etc.
It's quite an interesting point, actually, because for some of the people that have come over to us, there's also been the fear behind that. But then sort of giving away a big one to my
don't give anything away, don't worry.
No, but it's just the fear, oh, my customers, are they going to like your coffee? And it's like, do you think they're actually going to remember, sorry, with all due respect, it's been 3 months, do you think they're going to remember the profile? And so for those that have been unsure, it's like, okay, well, realistically, are the majority of your customers going to know the difference? We're here to sort of make that transition easier and support you. And as Edwin was saying, it's sort of then spending the time with your customers. We've got to make the decision ourselves. You know, I'd love to be able to bring more of my guys back. I brought someone back this week and he was just so thankful. It was ridiculous. I mean, which is great, really good. And he spent the last 2 days on site training at two of his customers. But it is really interesting that people are now reviewing everything we do. It's turned everything free, even for us here. As Edwin and Max have just said, it's literally turning it on its head, going, right, who review our suppliers, what can we do differently? That the whole offer is going to change. So for us, it's always been about conversations, spending time with our customers. Can't really afford to do that now, because there's a queue out the door and the weather's looking a bit dodgy. Can we spend that time chatting and conversing as much as we'd like? We kind of need the people in and out as soon as possible, which sounds awful. It goes against everything that we set our company up. So it's sort of, you know, you've got someone waiting in the queue patiently, and a nation of queuers. Well, I've never really believed that, but now we are. It's been forced upon us, and also the diversification. So a nation of shopkeepers. Well, yeah, a lot of my customers have diversified and become greengrocers and baking their own bread, selling other produce, and sort of we dipped our toe in sort of thinking, right, what can we do? Can we do online? Can we have click and collect for cakes and whatever? You know, as much as I'd like to be able to deliver coffee to people's houses, it's just not practical. You know, within seconds, your coffee's dying, and it's sort of, you know, so that's just not possible. No. So beer shops and pubs, that's fine, but for us it's kind of, well, yeah, temperature is a big factor here.
So you Edwin, I think you said something about you know, looking at a long-term strategy for your business in terms of, you know, for the next year, because, you know, the long and short of it is we may go into a second lockdown at some point. London could be the next Leicester, for all we know, in 2 weeks' time, after everybody decides to send on the pubs together and breathe on each other and fall ill with COVID. What's the thinking? And look, you know, there is no answer to this, but how do we learn from the last 15 or so weeks to effectively anticipate the potential of, at some stage, a second spike, whether that is in a month or whether that's back in winter, as some of the scientific leaders are saying, in terms of, and experts are saying, that actually, until we get a vaccine, it may come back, stronger and even worse come, the winter months, because obviously it likes the cold. What do you do as a business to prepare for that?
Okay. So I think, so we were very clear at the start that we never wanted Artisan to be part of the problem. And so if there was a lockdown, we would lock down ourselves. But I think it's about sort of looking after your team and looking after the customers to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And then following within the scope of the guidelines. I think, we all probably all looked at sort of trying to sell pasta and bread as quickly as possible as we did. And I think I've learned that probably isn't something that we need to do again. And I think it's much more about sticking to your core and basically stripping it all the way back until you're literally serving 1 cup of coffee at a time with a queue 2 meters apart outside, and you have one person on maybe for 5 hours, and if that's what you can do, then that's what you're doing. You're doing the best you can with what you can. And I think that's basically it. I think we will, I hope we don't, but if we do, it will just be a sort of a widening and narrowing of that sort of model as we go through these closing downs, opening ups, closing downs. And I think now we all know what that model is and sort of how it would work and who we can call and which team members and so on and so forth. So I think that side of it would be easier. Yeah. I think it's important that businesses react fairly quickly to the demand that is there. I think you don't want to be losing money by being open and having 3 or 4 people just standing around sort of having a chat all too close to each other, not looking particularly corona, social distance and all that sort of stuff. So I think you need to be, I now more than ever look at our numbers. I now, really do every day. I'm sort of checking them out, seeing where we're at, much more than I did in the past. Because I think you need to be on it basically as a business owner at the moment. You need to be very switched on, and you need to be really listening to your team and picking up on little cues, little things they say, bits of feedback, and so on and so forth, and reacting accordingly.
Yeah, brilliant. How about you, Max? What are your thoughts for how to deal with a potential second spike?
Fully agree with Edwin's thoughts there. I think we all winged this situation as best as we could, and sort of just made plans as we went on, and we by now know what works and what doesn't work. I think Lockdown Coffee has been a good record of people telling us what has worked and what hasn't worked, and at least we've got that plan in the drawer now. And we can close down again relatively quickly, and we can open up again relatively quickly. We know which suppliers to rely on, what staff is happy to come back, and what staff is more vulnerable and for that reason not. And what to do. Technology perhaps helping us. We've developed an app which we're slowly seeing an uptake in, which is nice. Things like cashless. We've been cashless for quite a few years. It's been my recommendation to any coffee shop or any hospitality business to go cashless. That's the best thing that we've ever done. And now I think a lot of businesses are finally daring to do it. Great thing, and relieves so many pressures, and obviously it's safer in COVID times.
As Edwin said quite rightly, there's a lot of things. Do we need to go back to how they were? Simplifying your model, diversifying, fine, but changing what the offer is, etc. So for us, it's everything we do. I never thought we'd sort of be the business where it's sort of you'd pick up a coffee from us. Oh, Mr. Jones, hello, here's your coffee and cake. Crazy, but there we go.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is that because we don't know whether there'll be any kind of second spike or anything, all you can do is continue to be an agile business, isn't it, at the end of the day? And as you've all said quite rightly, react quickly, and having learnt from having been through it once before, is it that you just scale back to take away or completely close? But the fact is that you can now do that. Thank you, guys. It's been quite an in-depth and actually really important episode, I think, this one, because there are lots, as Edwin said, there are lots of independent coffee shops out there that still don't quite know what they're going to be doing for reopening and how it's going to work, and just talking to each other and hearing from each other is really, really helpful. And that's all lockdown coffee has meant, or tried to be, over the last 12 weeks. So thank you, Max, as always. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, me. You can still subscribe, because there may be the odd special episode, who knows. Certainly please share, stay safe, and I hope wherever you are, your reopening of your businesses goes as smoothly as you would wish, and that we will get back to some kind of normality soon. So take care.